It's safe to say that fighting games have never been more popular. With the inclusion of world-renowned IPs like DC Comics, the Dragon Ball franchise, and the overall popularity of esports, there's never been a better time to be a member of the FGC. Yet back in May 2020, there was a supposed leak from 4chan, I know, take that with a grain of salt, that detailed the future of Warner Brothers Gaming, including the next installment of the dystopian superhero drama, Injustice 3. See, the aforementioned leak laid out the blueprint for initial DLC, as well as pointing to the game's primary antagonist, Nekron. If this is true, one needn't contain their excitement at the possibility of a potential Blackest Night finale for the Injustice universe. Arguably one of DC's most popular crossover events, the inclusion of Nekron could not only pave the way for the most ambitious storyline in the franchise, but also the largest playable roster in Nether Realm history. As we continue, if at any point you find yourself enjoying the content, please consider liking and subscribing. It truly helps the channel, and for a creator of my size, every comment is appreciated and returned. Now, let's begin. Although Nekron appeared first in the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #2 in 1981, most fans would agree that his most popular feature was during his stint as the primary antagonist of Jeff Johns' Blackest Night. While Johns' time on the Green Lantern line of comics was paramount to the current DC landscape, arguably his most important addition to the Green Lantern mythos was the introduction and further exploration of the emotional spectrum. Beyond the Green Lantern Corps and Yellow Lantern Corps, John's work on the title introduced readers to two of the most popular iterations of the Intergalactic Space Patrol, the Black and White Lanterns respectively. See, the Black Lanterns, represented by Nekron and his underling Black Hand, had full power over the emotional spectrum of death. The White Lantern mantle, originally achieved by Kyle Rayner, is the counterpart of the Black Lantern Corps, as a White Lantern has achieved mastery over every aspect of the emotional spectrum and are true harbingers of the power of life. In the Injustice universe, we've been introduced to three aspects of the emotional spectrum in the mainline games. The Green Lanterns, who represent willpower, the Yellow Lanterns, who harness the power of fear, and the Red Lanterns, Atrocitus, who represents pure rage and anger. So if Nekron is the primary antagonist, what does this mean for the Injustice landscape? Well, luckily, the Blackest Night storyline provides us some clues. And be careful, spoilers for the Blackest Night storyline ahead. So, Nekron's appearance in the Blackest Night storyline as the embodiment of death is primarily used as a plot device, but only in retrospect. Don't get me wrong, this is an excellently written story, as the only way the Black Lantern Corps can recruit members into their ranks is if the ring wearers are already deceased. The most notable inclusion during this time in the comics is Batman, who becomes one of the first exhumed to don the mantle of a Black Lantern. From there, other notable heroes follow suit: Superman, Wonder Woman, to name a few. I actually cannot explain to you how many people die in this crossover. As the casualties begin to mount on the side of the living, the Black Lanterns only grow in strength and in numbers. However, Nekron as a figurehead and an entity was used by Johns rather creatively to not only soft reboot the existing meta, but to reshuffle the DC landscape. In terms of the Injustice universe, Nekron is a logical next step, if not the conclusion for their timeline. Many heroes we know and admire are long dead, Shazam and Nightwing to name a few, and could easily be brought back with the power of the Black Lantern ring. Much like the Revenant forms of our favorite MK characters, these Black Lantern Corps versions of Shazam, Nightwings, and other fallen heroes would allow Ed Boon and NetherRealm Studios to include and write in exceptionally popular DLC and playable characters naturally into the story. To continue the plot thread and to get into further spoiler territory of the Blackest Night storyline, this would also be an excellent way to introduce new abilities into the roster. Near the climax of the battle with Nekron, Hal Jordan is aided by many of his allies, yet with an additional bonus. You see, Barry Allen receives the Blue Lantern ring. Yeah, that's right, a Blue Lantern Flash, which represents hope for all of you that do not know. Lex Luthor receives the Orange Lantern ring, which represents greed. In an amazing twist, Scarecrow receives the Yellow Lantern ring, as we've represented so far by fear, and a reborn Wonder Woman receives the Star Sapphire or Violet ring, which represents love. Ray Palmer, the Atom, receives the Indigo Lantern ring representing compassion, and Queen Mara receives the Red Lantern ring because, trust me, by this point, she is pissed in the storyline. Much like the variations in MK, these lantern rings could grant our characters specific power-ups and traits, or at the very least augments, that would separate them and their equipment from other players. Of course, this would have to be left to the genius of Ed Boon and the developers at NetherRealm to balance, but much like MVCI with the Infinity Stones, their inclusion could either be divisive, welcomed, praised, or loathed, or a combination of all four. Now you may ask me, Doc, isn't Kyle Rayner dead in the Injustice universe? And to that I'd say yes, he died during year 2 upon returning to Earth, and was dismembered in the vacuum of space by Sinestro. This is unfortunate, but actually doesn't hinder the storyline of Blackest Night or potentially Injustice 3. In fact, to go even further into spoiler territory, the first individual to gain the White Lantern ring after Nekron's appearance isn't Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, or any other member of the Green Lantern Corps, but rather Sinestro himself. While I don't expect this to happen in the Injustice series, I do believe it paves the way for one of our heroes to be the saving grace of humanity. Not Batman, not Superman, yet Hal Jordan. See, Hal's journey through the Injustice universe, finding redemption after donning the Yellow Lantern ring, and even being offered a Red Lantern ring by Atrocitus in Injustice 2, shows that he is more than capable of harnessing almost all aspects of the emotional spectrum necessary to wield the power of the White Lantern. This would offer an excellent redemption arc to finish the tie on his storyline, and could be the turning point against Nekron in the official story mode. Now, what does all this point to? If indeed Nekron is the primary antagonist, it would allow Ed Boon and company to bring back every character that's ever been featured as a playable character in the Injustice series. That's right, a roster of over 40 characters, not including future DLC favorite contenders like Beast Boy and Constantine. If this is indeed the direction NRS plans to go in the future, the fanbase will be all the better for it. See, I'm a massive fan of DC Comics, and while I'll admit that their cinematic universe hasn't had the best offerings in comparison, their TV universe, their animated universe, and their comic book universe have been absolutely on fire lately in terms of quality, in my humble opinion. Might just be me. I would love to see some death metal incorporated into the next Injustice, and the Batman Who Laughs as a playable DLC, not just a skin for Noob Saibot. I like that character. So, what do you think? Is this a possible avenue for the future of Injustice? I want to make a deal. If this video gets 50 likes, I'll create my ultimate wish list for the next roster of Injustice 3. So for now, my guys, I have been TheDoctorBlu. You are incredible, and I will see you in the next video.